of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors. We're also meeting as all special taxing districts, and this is a special budget work session of May the 10th, 9 a.m. Before we begin, for those of you who do not know, May 10th is Mother's Day in Mexico, so we want to wish all mothers a happy Mother's Day. In Spanish, I should say that in Spanish, but Feliz Dia de las Madres. Okay, so after that, some of you might have read the paper this morning and realized that it only took us 70 minutes to go through the agenda yesterday. Although I'd like to break that record, do not, take your time and do your presentation. Normally, we set aside as much time as necessary to listen to, what you've got to present. But I do want to emphasize that the reason why that took so little time as opposed to the hours it took in the past is because of the work of the budget review team and all you directors, department heads that, by the time you get to us, you pretty much have discussed almost everything in minute detail. So it's not really us that makes it go faster. It's really you that make it go faster. So having said that, I'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. And this will be led by Supervisor Porcias.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, I forgot presiding Judge Haas was here. We should have made him do the Pledge of Allegiance. It's the only time I can tell him to do something, right? I should have done that. It's the only opportunity I have to tell a judge to do something. I'm not a
You can't tell you just ask.
Well, we ask him, in a nice way to do something. Okay, the first item in the agenda is call to the public. Call to the public is held for the public benefit to allow individuals to address issues within the board's jurisdiction. Board members may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to Arizona revised statutes, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to criticism, or scheduling the matter for further discussion and a decision at a future date. I normally open this up to anyone that's in the public that is not in the agenda, but I'll keep it open throughout the process. So if there's something in there that you miss or something that you may want to say later carefully, you can always do that. I'll begin by having the budget review team, who maybe Susan, give us, a brief summary of what we're going to do today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The format that we'll use is the same as yesterday. We'll have each of the agencies come forward and speak to you about their budget, any issues that they continue to have, or if they are satisfied with the budget as recommended. As you know, we have talked about various changes, which will go from the recommended to the tentative budget. And so at the end of today's session, we'll tally those up, and then any additional input that the board would like to have on any other adjustments that would go into the tentative budget, we'll discuss at that time. So we're ready to get started with, I guess the recorder is first. And as the same as yesterday, Lucia Gomez will tell you what page of the budget document that those departments and agencies are located on, so you can follow along.
All right, Lucia.
Good morning, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. We have recorders, Robin Paquette, County Recorder, available for any questions. Department pages begin page 137, staffing page 138.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. The Recorder's Office is comfortable with the budget for fiscal year 19. I can answer any questions you may have. I did want to note that we appreciate the work that the BRT has done because it gives us the opportunity to address any upcoming changes that may affect the functions of our office. And as you know, we have encountered a few changes over the last few years in regard to voter registration and the necessity to conduct additional mailings and whatnot. And I think all is going smoothly. We have a new statewide voter registration system upcoming this next fiscal year, and I hope to give the administrator and members of the BRT more information in that regard as to the impact for the general fund closer to the end of the fiscal year, although it may affect this fiscal year. So I think that's the only thing I'm hoping to update you on later, but if you have any questions, I can answer.
Well, we normally say that if you're happy, we're happy, but there may be some questions here from the board. Anybody has any questions?
Well, you did jump into one question I had. We are still not sure of the upcoming impacts for the new state system, right?
We are not, Chairman Reyes, Supervisor McLeod. We were under the understanding that the acquisition of the new statewide voter registration system would be carried by the Secretary of State's office, and M&O costs moving forward would be on the counties, and as it has been the last few years. There is some concern that we may not have very solid numbers in that regard, although we expect M&O costs to be slightly less than we've paid in the past. I do have some concerns in regard to the actual acquisition of the system itself and any additional impacts the county may be asked to bear.
And
So,
there was federal funding that should have covered that for the state, though, right?
yes, Chairman Reyes, Supervisor McLeod, there was federal funding that has not yet been received by the Secretary of State's office, and we just received a letter back from Secretary Reagan this morning that noted their plans in regard to that federal funding, and it appears that there may be in excess of $5 million that may be trickled down to the counties, but that's kind of up in the air right now. So I think that we would hope to have a update fairly quickly. I know we'll have a meeting on June 7th as to the statewide system. We were hoping that the state would see fit to provide additional funding that the recorder's offices could use for M&O responsibilities that we have continued to pay out of the county general fund, or in the alternative, or in combination with assisting the elections department by perhaps funds that would assist election equipment. It simply has to follow the path of supporting cybersecurity. So that those are the requirements of the federal funds. We're just still working on what those details are, when they could give us some additional details.
And Mr. Chairman, the reason for going down that line of questioning is, I understand that's not up to you. I wanted to make the general public and those here aware that there is funding that should flow down to the counties. You chose your words carefully. You used the word may. I'm going to say that it should. And so we all want to be alert to that and
Keep an eye on.
push where we need to make sure that it does. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you very much.
Robin, before you leave, there's take the opportunity to let the millions of viewers we have to sort of warn them about those new requests for information forms that are coming out in the mail. They look like a voting, like a ballot, and the permanent voter list, I guess, is being updated. People are being asked to provide any new information or to change or to keep things the same.
Yes. Chairman Reyes, members of the board, the county recorder's office is distributing 90-day notices to permanent early voters this last week and this week. In addition, we're sending out early ballot requests in the coming weeks. I did speak with the administration of the city of San Luis yesterday with a few questions in regard to those mailers, and was made aware that there are additional mailers voters are receiving that are not being sent by the county. And I have not personally seen those. We have asked a few people to bring those in and let us take a look at them, so we're aware of what the community is looking at, but they are not
Sent by the
from
county.
our office. Yes.
All right. Okay. Well, I can see you're on it, so thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Next, we have the Sheriff's Office with Jail District and Patrol Administration. Sheriff Wilma is available for any questions. Department pages for the
You've got
Jail
plenty of
District
security,
begin on
didn't you?
page 143, staffing 144. Department pages for Patrol and Administration begin page 147, staffing 148.
Okay, Sheriff.
Mr. Chair, members of the board.
You
First, I'd like to thank
crew.
Robin for surrendering a lot of her extra time so we could utilize it this morning.
Come back, Robin.
I thought there was we used to have some security here, but I think we're missing him now. Well, he left.
Oh,
His
they're
boss was
outside.
coming.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
First thing I want to do, I noticed yesterday there was a question in regards to 911 in Yuma County as a whole. And what I did is I asked our 911 coordinator, Heather, to come and speak a little bit about that to you this morning so she could answer any questions, give you a little bit of history of where 911 was and where it's at today and where it used to be housed and why it's housed where it is now versus a contract as well. And I'd let the county administrator know that I was doing this, so you could get the right answers from the person that's coordinating it all. So
All right.
I'll surrender some of
No.
that time to Mark.
Good morning,
Speaking.
Chairman and
Good
Board.
morning.
Heather Pyatt Morris. I am the Yuma County 911 Coordinator. I've been in this position since 2012. 911 came to Yuma County in 1986, and at the time, it was a state-funded project, and the state required a local administrator be named, and they decided to split up the jurisdictions by counties. And so they required Yuma County to have a representative that could speak to the PSAPs that were created for the 911 system and the state and act as a liaison between them. At the time, it was under YMPO. About 2011, there was a transition with the creation of Yuma Regional Communications System and all the shared technology systems that were coming forth with the public safety agencies, the radio systems, the CAD systems. And since 911 is a somewhat shared system across the county, they figured it would be a good option to bring it under YRCS and have that same council over the other systems over the representative for the 911 system. So they migrated the 911 administrator's office over from YMPO to YRCS through an IGA in 2011.
And YRCS is?
Yuma Regional Communication System, sorry. State funding comes from the Emergency Telecommunication Services Revolving Fund. It's a 20 cents that's levied on every phone line once a month. And that fund pays for all of the equipment in the 911 dispatch centers. It doesn't fund staffing, it doesn't fund training, it just funds the 911 network itself and the equipment in them, plus the maintenance to support just that equipment. The 911 coordinator is responsible for making sure that there's good communication between the state and the PSAPs as far as the working condition of the equipment, making sure that the contracts are in place. Essentially, the contracts are between the agencies, but the state pays the bill. So when the bills come in, they come to my office, I write an authorization letter, it goes up to the state, they send the check to the company responsible for the equipment, the maintenance, and the network. So the PSAPs are not charged with any fees associated with the equipment, the maintenance, or the network. Any fees that the agencies are paying are for local management. The state doesn't fund my position, other than there's about a $7,000 tax check that comes in every year to pay for my office to keep functioning, and that's from the state. Otherwise, it's all locally funded. Each agency is required, each PSAP or public safety answering point that actually has 911 equipment in their center pays a $7,500 a year fee to keep the 911 office fund going. In the past few years, the budget's around $100,000 a year for that office. And that includes GIS services for the 911 and the public safety CAD software system. And so I am a city employee, and that money just reimburses the city for my time. And then there's GIS employees for the city that are contracted through YRCS, and the money reimburses the city for their time that they spend on 911 and CAD-related projects from YRCS. So that's where that $7,500 comes from. There's also a population-based fee that all of the other fees that are not covered under the PSAP fee, because that only amounts to about $30,000 a year, the rest of it's split up under a population-based fee. And that's distributed amongst the agencies based on the previous DES population numbers for the previous year. It supports, we hold a once-a-year training for dispatchers, and there's training available to them through my office for the systems that they use in 911. It funds GIS services for the 911 system and the public safety CAD system, CAD and records management system. And we haven't been spending the fund fully in the past few years, but there's never been a contingency fund created either. So because if the state were ever to fall delinquent on the bills, we would be responsible for them. So we've built a small contingency or rainy day fund, if you will, to make sure that none of the agencies are, they're not going to get their 911 service cut off, or if their equipment fails and it's something that they don't have the funding to cover and it's not covered under the state contracts, that we have some money to put forth for the agencies. Through that process, we've also put a contingency aside for text to 911. I'm sure you guys have probably seen letters or talk about text to 911 and everybody needing to move to that. Well, there's a cost associated with it, and the tax fund that the state is bringing in is so low at this point, there's not enough funding to cover it. And usually that would be a state-covered item, and we've been pushing for it. We've asked for it, continue to ask for it in the budget, even though the money's not there. But we set aside that contingency to actually go ahead and implement this next year if the council approves it without any additional cost to the agencies for the first 2 years.
Right.
So that's what the fund right now does for 911 services.
How many answering points are there?
There are 4 primary public safety answering points. 3 of them are state funded, and that's the Yuma County Sheriff's Office, the City of Yuma, and the City of Somerton. There is a 4th primary answering point, and that's San Luis, but the state doesn't have the money in the budget to cover them, so they are fully self-funded. Rural Metro is a secondary PSAP, and they are state funded. There's also a PSAP at the Marine Corps Air Station and Yuma Proving Grounds. Those are federally funded, but we still provide GIS services for them.
Okay. You satisfied?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was asked the question by another
Yeah.
county supervisor.
Well, it turns out
I
that
didn't have all the
the
answers.
longest presentation we've had is something that we don't control at all. The 9/11
But
system.
you know a lot more
Yeah,
about
we know a lot
911 than
more
you
now
did.
than I ever thought I knew.
So if the city does fund the tax, will the sheriff's office be able to attach onto that?
The text 9, oh yeah, so the 911 coordinator's office, while I work for the city, my 911 coordinator hat is completely agnostic of my agency, and I am for all the agencies, so the text 911 project would be for all of them.
For all. Outstanding.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. This was great.
Thank you,
Good
Sheriff.
information. So how's your budget, Chair?
We are going to touch on that, Mr. Chair.
Let me
We're
get
going to
some
go into
coffee.
that this morning. First, I would like to mention the fact that this is the National Correctional Officers Week, where we thank our correction officers for what they do, which is pretty much unseen by the public, but for everything that they do, I wanted to thank them personally and bring that to your attention. And next week is National Law Enforcement Officers Week as well, which we will be having a service down at the Crossing Park on, I believe, the 15th. So if you get a chance to stop by, the family and friends of those that have had the ultimate sacrifice would appreciate it. So
Well.
with that being said, obviously the Sheriff's Office has 3 different bureaus contained within: administration, patrol, and detention. And what I wanted to do was allow our command staff that oversee those areas, give us a short presentation, educate you on where we're at in our operations, and get them reintroduced to our public as well. So with that, we'll start with patrol, and I will turn it over to Captain Eben Bratcher.
Yeah, well, it's always nice to have a patrolman in front of you instead of behind you. I always said, it's good to
Not
see
even
you.
not even going to address that. Good morning, Chairman Reyes and members of the board. I'm Captain Eben Bratcher. As the sheriff introduced me, I'm the commander of the Patrol Bureau. And I would like to take just a few minutes to highlight some of our accomplishments and also point out some of our needs. First, I would be remiss if I didn't thank County Administrator Susan Thorpe and the entire budget review team. They're very responsive to our needs and concerns and a pleasure to work with throughout this process. I would also like to thank the board and the budget review team for assisting us in maintaining a ready fleet of first responder vehicles. It's very critical for us to have a solid fleet. It allows us to efficiently and effectively maintain public safety. One of our primary objectives in this last year has been to strengthen relationships with our schools. School safety is one of our primary concerns. We have been able to provide training to school administration and staff in critical incident response and school safety. We have also been very effective in reaching out to the students and teaching them about safety as well, bicycle safety, pedestrian safety, etc. We've also been able to hand out hundreds of bicycle safety helmets, which we obtained through no cost to the county through a grant from the Governor's Office of Highway Safety. Those projects will continue. We've also recently partnered with the United States Border Patrol, where we are going into schools and educating youth who are at risk of being exploited by drug cartels. Hundreds of students cross the border every day. And I noticed a trend where they are being exploited by drug smugglers who attempt to get them to carry drugs across the border when they come. So we are reaching out with the Border Patrol to those schools and educating those youth on how to avoid that problem. We continue to seek Grant funds to augment our patrols and successfully bring in well over $1 million a year in grant funds. That allows us to significantly enhance the number of patrols we're able to do, as well as provide equipment that we wouldn't otherwise be able to provide. We continue to make excellent use of our volunteers. Those volunteers are critical to us. They respond to serious traffic collisions and perform other services, which frees up deputies to go back on patrol and respond to calls for service. Thousands and thousands of dollars a year are saved in deputy overtime by these volunteers. It is our mission, and we strive very hard to make the most of every resource that we have and continue to do so within budget. With those accomplishments mentioned, I think it's important that I also point out some of the challenges that we face. The medical examiner's office, as an example, continues to be a significant drain on our resources. We have full-time positions that are assigned to the medical examiner, but the demand for service continues to grow. And we are in a position where we're forced to augment their work with overtime from deputy positions. That job's not going to go away anytime soon, and it's something that we agreed to take on and assist the county with. With that said, it's also important, and that leads into to my last point. The employee costs that are associated with overtime and holiday pay, for example, those are not budgeted, and that's something that in the past we've been able to absorb through savings, open positions. With the assistance that we've received in addressing employee recruitment and retention, we are now, thankfully, in a spot where every one of our positions is either filled or in the background process. What that does is it eliminates the savings that we've been able to generate through open positions, and that leaves us having to absorb somehow approximately $150,000 in costs every year from those unfunded employee associated costs. With that said, again, thank you, and I'll answer whatever questions you may have.
Any questions? Thank you. It was a good presentation.
Just compliments on the great work with the limited resources. Thank you.
Morning, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. It's great to see all of you again. I'm Captain Martinez. I oversee the jail operations for the sheriff, the oldest gated community in Yuma County.
Okay, hold a minute. You're happy to see us in this environment, right?
In this environment, yes, Chairman.
No hidden meaning to that.
You'd be happy anytime we meet.
You want to make sure of that.
We might not be happy.
Yeah, we wouldn't be as happy to see you.
In regards to the jail district budget, we're not asking for any additional funding. We are thankful for the market salary adjustment from the last fiscal year. It's definitely helped with our attrition and retention. We also save money with our open positions. It's kind of a double-edged sword. With the open positions, we have to feel can cause some overtime at times. As always, we'll be working within our budget addressing security issues and professional growth of our leadership through promotion boards and advanced training. The mental health population is a growing cost of more than $1 million annually. We will be working with the courts along with the CA's office and the local providers toward diversion plans and safely returning this population to the communities or the appropriate atmosphere for them. I appreciate your time, and if there are any questions, I can answer them. There's also a two-part. Captain Lackey will be right after me.
Okay, that's fair warning right there. Are there any questions? No? Thank you. Well-oiled machinery right here.
I see on my counter I've got about 15 seconds left.
Put the timer on.
So I'm going to try to get that before the gong hits. But Chairman Reyes, members of the board, good morning. From the jail, and I'd add on to what Mark said. As the sheriff always tells us, the jail is the oldest bed and breakfast in Yuma County. So that's how that works for us. As Mark mentioned, in regards to the jail district, we're not asking for any additional funding, but I want to take the time to talk a little bit about our most significant action that we're moving forward with, and that is CIP all day long. Our investment in the infrastructure of the jail facilities to make sure that we maintain a secure and safe environment. The CIP projects that we're going to be moving forward with this next fiscal year includes the fire alarm system replacement and the security panel upgrade replacement. Both of those were awarded April 2nd by board action. Just so that we understand a little bit what we're getting out of that, as a general overview, the fire alarm system replaces our original system, and that was installed in about 1986. Now, the scope of that work includes replacement of fire alarm panels, smoke and heat detection, alarm devices, and it adds control interaction with other life safety devices. All replacement schedule will meet compliance with current national fire safety codes, and that's changed drastically, again, as the first system was installed in 1986. That bid was awarded to Copper State Fire Protection, and that lists a GMP of $898,226. Now, our second major project that we're going to be undertaking is going to be moving forward with the security panel upgrade. Now, that's the jail door control system. That replaces our antiquated system, which was installed about the mid-90s, and it's become very necessary because the current system is no longer supported. Many of the parts that we also need are just no longer available. The scope of that work includes installation of a complete PLC and graphic workstation control system. That's specific to door control, door monitoring, and intercom systems. That bid was awarded to Convergent Technologies, and the listed GMP was $1,070,000. Both of these capital improvement projects were made possible only through the board's approval of the bond used to address these critical needs. We can't thank you enough for that support. Biz.
That's it. What happened to the red light?
I saw it.
You saw it. Yeah.
Yes,
It
sir.
that was coming. Any questions?
I have a
Thank
comment.
you. Oh, a comment.
To the folks with the jail. I communicated with the sheriff recently. I saw there was an award to Yavapai County, about $500,000 to do a diversion program. And so we were messaging back and forth about that. And I think the comment from the sheriff was, we're way ahead of them. And so I commend you on that. And I know that you have been doing that. And so while they're playing catch up, maybe you ought to invite them down to see how you do things and you're doing it well. And I know you'll continue to improve. And that is a savings to not only to our community, but it's a benefit to our citizens, especially those who receive the help that they need. So congratulations on being ahead of the curve again.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
All right. Now, we got the court system a little further ahead, and we can also talk about drug court in conjunction with some of this, but we'll get there.
Mental health court.
Yeah, mental health court.
But,
Chair?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I will just echo those sentiments. And then I had a discussion with Captain Martinez, in fact, this morning, that the jail commanders throughout the state are always meeting and discussing stuff. And I asked him to get engaged with Yavapai County, because if their program is a success, then they're looking at expanding that. Initially, when that legislation was proposed, Yuma was part of that, and then that dropped off. So, and it was something that the sheriff up in Yavapai County, Scott Masher, had put together for their county as a pilot project that he had discussed with legislation. So that's something that we're going to keep our eye on and keep a pulse on what's happening. But we kind of share between all the jail commanders best practices. So we'll keep you updated on that information as it goes. And I did want to bring up to the general public and to the board itself, and if we could pass these out to the board. You know, something that we do proactive to the public is put on our website, yumacountysheriff.org, what's going on in the community and what is the sheriff's office doing out there. And we have a community events section on our webpage that goes down and breaks down each and every bureau within the sheriff's office and exactly what they encountered and what productivity they had for that month. And I think when you go through that reading, and I made the small print, so you really got to concentrate, but yeah, I think you'll be amazed at from how many walk-ins that we have at the Foothills substation to how many warrants are entered from our warrants department to how many calls for service we get just in 1 month. So it's something that's out there for transparency so that folks actually know what's going on in the sheriff's office and what's happening in the community. So with that, I just want to thank you for your time this morning and the county recorder for surrendering her time so we could do our presentation for you today. So,
He didn't have any time to surrender, but it's okay.
Buzzer hasn't gone off yet, so.
Oh, well, we tend to be careful with that. We tend to take a little more lenient attitude towards the sheriff department and the justice court. For some reason, I can't fathom. Thank you, Sheriff, very much. Oh, wait a minute, a comment. There's always a comment.
Of course there is. And it's a compliment. You know, to the public, those sitting in here, you've seen the interaction between the sheriff's department and the board. And it's a very positive interaction. And I can
Most
tell
of
you
the
that
time.
it's not that way everywhere. And so we appreciate that. Thank you for that. It doesn't happen by accident. It happens because people choose to work together well. And so I greatly appreciate that. I hear the stories, and I'm glad we're not one of those.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Supervisor McLeod, I can only echo those statements. I too talked with the sheriffs throughout the state, and they're rather impressed about the way that we communicate with each other and the fact that our board is engaged with the community, and that's what we focus on is our communities and doing what's best for them. So the lines of communication, as we well know, are vital to success. The communication that we've had with the county administrator has been something that I'm very proud of, and her ability with her teams to be able to bring everything that we have as concerns to resolution, and the time that she's been able to do it is something that we should be very proud of. So I'd like to thank her too for everything that her and the budget review team, and I know Gil and Matt are always conversing on a routine basis. So,
You can call
Exchanging
Gil, that
information.
is conversing, Gil?
Mr. Chairman.
He's always dressed in a uniform or something when he talks to me. Well. Oh, thank you very much. Is there something?
I just had a question, and I don't know if we can do this. I talked to Susan about that, and I talked to the sheriff. I was out at Martinez Lake for a homeowners meeting last weekend, and it kind of came to light that the sheriff's office boats out there are in serious need of replacing. The newest ones they have are 10 years old, which is just at the end of their lifespan. And I know several of them right now are in need, and talking with the homeowners out there, and that area is a growing area. And we've heard the challenges as far as other funding that they have, and I was just wondering if there's some way that we could come up with some funding to get 2 new boats so they're not spending money that they don't have to keep what they have operating.
Wait, SLIP supposed to do that?
Well, used to you had SLIP that you bought boats from, but the state parks oversees that, and they sweep that fund every year. It's no longer there.
Did they
Well-
sweep it this year too?
Yeah.
Okay.
And those funds is what they've always used. That's the reason I don't think they've ever come to the board with boats in their budget, because that money's been available,
So
and it's not.
Are the boats considered part of the fleet? The boats, are they considered part of the fleet? Are they included in? They should be, and we should be dealing with them as other replaceable vehicles that have a lifespan that you need to address. I mean, instead of waiting that long until they're,
Well, they were funded by SLIP.
yeah.
Yeah,
And we didn't have to worry.
No, but I mean, they're still listed as part of the fleet, so I guess what I'm saying, right?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, in regards to the patrol vessels, yes, they are county property. They're maintained through general fund dollars. I would just echo the fact that LEBSF takes care of the salaries and stuff, and then they had SLIF, State Lake Improvement Fund, which was utilized for equipment, basically, and the purchase and ultimately the building of our lake substation out there at Martinez Lake. I thank you for bringing that up. Our vessels are old, and that's what we have traditionally utilized, are those funds to purchase patrol vessels. I know we've introduced legislation in the past because the state parks was actually taking monies away from LEBSF, which funded our boating officers to be out there. Thankfully, we had a great partnership with our legislators and senators to be able to stop that from happening, because they were using that money for backfill for their employees. So we were able to stop that. But I will say that obviously our priority, and that's why we did not address boats, has always been our frontline vehicles for patrol. If we could work with the county administrator on being able to purchase 1 or 2 to replace our aging fleet, I would welcome that. And it's something that we could look at.
Or
Certainly.
lobby to get the SLIP back.
Or, yeah,
And that's
One or the
something
other.
that we might want to look at for legislation to
Important.
stop
next year,
state lake from, state parks from sweeping those funds every
this is
year.
the fun
Well,
stuff.
Yeah,
thank you.
please
Thank you.
introduce that. And we'll carry it. We'll carry the water.
Chair, members of the board, Supervisor McLeod, I will be more than happy to work on that one.
All right. And thank you for bringing it up. Right? We'll keep a close eye on that one through the process. Anything else? Anything else? No? Thank you very much, Sheriff. Thank you. Like
Thank
I
you.
said, it's always a pleasure to have you in front of us instead of behind us.
Not behind.
Thank you very much, guys. Always a pleasure.
Next, we have the Treasurer's Office. Angela Moreno, County Treasurer, is available for any questions. Department pages begin on page 161, staffing 162.
I don't want to put an undue pressure on you, but we're like 35 minutes behind.
Dang.
To do that.
All right, more like 35 seconds. Good morning, Chairman Reyes and board members. I'd like to let you know that I am satisfied with the budget review team's suggestion and approval of the Treasurer's Office budget this year.
Any questions? You're happy. We're happy. Any questions? No? No
I
questions,
have a
you
question.
see? Oh, wait.
I have one
we have a
question. Angela, the increase in, can you tell me some of the things that you've done to increase the amount of taxes that you're bringing in? I've noticed that the budgets from 15, 16 and on up, the amount of tax dollars that property tax dollars that you're bringing in has increased every year.
So tax collection is something that is definitely a priority and a focus in our office. First and foremost, excellent customer service, communication, educating the customer. I call them customers, our taxpayers, and the convenience of easy paying. So I've tried to open the lines of all different ways to pay. The majority of houses are mortgaged, so I work with mortgage companies and title companies, and mostly the millennials they don't have checks, they like everything electronic, so we've opened those modes of payment. Really, that honestly, it's education, and it's that customer service of communicating to let them know there's many modes of ways to pay those taxes. We have also allowed the partial payments to be accepted anytime throughout the year. So that, I think, is a huge difference, especially for people on those fixed incomes that are no longer mortgaged. And if they could send us whatever they can, there's no written agreement that, a payment plan or anything like that. We just gladly accept any money, anytime. So I would say a lot of customers are very happy about that. So perhaps that helps.
So that just making it easier. Making it easier and making it more
Yes.
convenient to people.
More convenient, absolutely. So I do think that those are, totally, helping all collections across the board. So
Do you get much through credit card?
very, yes, a lot every day. Yeah.
Right, well, that's good for the listening public to know.
Yes.
In the newspaper that they.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No,
All right.
that's it.
Thank you very much. Happy to.
Next, we have Clerk of Superior Court. Lynn Foss, Clerk of the Superior Court, is available for any questions. Department pages are on page 51, staffing page 53.
Good morning. Lynn.
The clerk's office is satisfied with the budget as proposed and brought forward from the budget review team. We really enjoy our working relationship with them and feel like they have made the process so much easier over the years. So we do appreciate that. I'm open to any questions you might have.
Any questions, comments?
Pages.
No. Thank you very much, Lynn. Thank you.
Next, we have Superior Court. Presiding Judge Hawes is available for any questions. Department pages begin on page 151, staffing page 156.
Good morning, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. Happy to be here on behalf of the Superior Court.
Can you still do the Pledge of Allegiance if we ask you?
I could, yeah. Do you want to do it again or come back next time? I'm proud to represent the Superior Court here today. We have a great organization. All of our departments are functioning well, and we are all very happy with the recommended budget. And again, would like to express our appreciation to the budget review team. They're easy to work with. You know, we have good communication. I'd like to particularly address it. We're grateful for the appreciation and understanding that they seem to have about the technological needs of the court. We know they're expensive, and we really appreciate that they're taking a view to look to a long-term plan instead of trying to fix it piecemeal here and there. They've recommended a long-term plan that will really help the courts continue to function, and we appreciate that. We also appreciate the recognition of the value of our employees with the recommended increase. We're so appreciative of our employees, and we really think it's important to have a consistent long-term employment relationships, and this increase will help. And then added to that is the fact that the good work that we do in keeping our insurance costs down mean that this is actually an increase. You know, because in the past we've seen little increases eaten up by increased insurance premiums, and we're really happy that that's not happening this year. We do good work. I think of the Adult Probation Department, the North End Clinic, the things that we're doing. We are on the leading edge in Arizona. Our court, our probation departments, our juvenile probation, we're looked at as leaders throughout the state for the things that we do. And very happy to be part of that, and I would be happy to answer any questions that the board has.
Any questions for the judge? Judge, thank you very much. It's, you know, it's always good. See how fast he moves? It's always good to have a situation where there aren't any questions. He's been well trained. He just moved up, I think.
I learned when I was a lawyer that if the judge was already inclined to rule your way,
yeah, you just shut up and move. I always use that terminology. You got to know when you're ahead. You got to quit before you damage your case.
Next, we
Thank
have
you very much.
adult probation. Sandy Hopple, Chief Adult Probation Officers, available for any questions. Department pages begin on page 33, staffing page 36.
Before you begin, and because he left so quickly, Judge, let me tell you that we, the older, members of this board, do remember not too long ago where the presentation from the Superior Court was the most feared presentation we had, right? They would, we know that there are some things that make that relationship different, different than almost any other department. And so we were very, when Andy was here, when, some of those members some of those presiding judges, they were always, tough to deal with. Let's put it that way. But it was a relationship that I was also looked at the state as one of the few where, we could agree. It really took us a little longer than now. So we do appreciate the fact that, things have settled in a way that benefits both the court system and us, and there's less confrontation. In general, there's less, differences to be discussed. Most of them get addressed earlier. So we do appreciate that. And, for the new board members, I'll tell you this, you guys are enjoying the fruits of a lot of discussion in the past and a lot of changes made. All right.
This isn't even fair.
This isn't fair. They're going to think
We're
it's
not
because
complaining.
they came on board.
Yeah, right?
They're going to think, oh, well, we got him board. Everything changed.
Everything's better.
Everything's better because we're here. Right? All right. No, go ahead. Sorry.
Chairman Reyes, members of the board, good morning. I'm thankful to be here in this season of cooperation, I can say. So thank you for your words. On behalf of the Adult Probation Department, I'm happy to say that we are also satisfied with the recommendations of the budget review team. They just keep getting better and better every year. Sometimes I can't believe how much assistance they give us and give us a different perspective on how to look at some of the issues that we're working on. So totally appreciate the work that you do and help that you give us along the way. I want to also extend a note of gratitude to you for your assistance in helping us bring about the North End Community Connections Integrated Care Clinic. It was your vote last year to allow for this group to come in and rent some county space. I think that's not been done anywhere else in the county. And that's what started this whole project. And the grand opening last week, what I think was a booming success. There was a lot of people in attendance. And a lot of people got to know exactly what's going to happen in this clinic. For those of you that did not attend, you're welcome to come by anytime. We'll give you a guided tour. The clients aren't going to start coming in until the license is in place, which is on the 21st, coming up soon. But we've already begun the processes that we're going to be using to assist the probationers, parolees, folks that are coming out of prison and the jails to get on their feet and have access to good care and good planning. So thank you very much for your participation in that. We are ecstatic about the opportunities that we have with that clinic being in our building, and my staff, the officers are intrigued, but also very excited about the possibilities of us changing the way that we do business as well.
This is interesting. My birthday is the 21st. It may be a interesting way to spend, my 35th birthday. To place it. Thank you very much.
You're not 29 anymore.
Are we on a 2-for-1 plan?
I'm not saying nothing.
I don't know if you have
Any
any
questions?
questions about our budget.
No comments? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next, we have Justice Court number 1. Presiding Justice of the Peace, Judge Stewart, is available for any questions. Department pages begin on page 105, staffing page 107.
Thank you. Chairman Reyes, members of the board, I bring greetings today on behalf of the staff of Justice Court. Here in Yuma County, I'm also grateful for the recommendations of the budget review team. I just want to echo the comments of those that have come before me. It continues to be a great place to work in Yuma County, working with the board, the different members of the BRT, and the various department heads. I'm here today to answer any questions you may have regarding Justice Court Precinct 1. Judges Guerrero and Jones are here to address their respective courts, and so I thank you for your time today.
Any questions from, no, thank you. I mean, we have no other comments than positive comments. I mean, it's a pleasure to work with people who do their job as professionally as you guys are doing.
It is definitely a good time to work in Yuma County, so we're very blessed with the working relationships with the county, with Superior Court, and as I mentioned, the various departments, so thank you.
All right.
Next, we have Justice Court number 2. Justice of the Peace, Judge Guerrero, is available for any questions. Department pages begin on page 105, staffing page 107.
Good morning, Chairman Reyes, Vice Chairman Cloud, honorable members of the board. Good morning, and we don't have any requests. We're very pleased. On behalf of my staff, myself, I want to thank the board for their support, but most important, we've heard the cooperation that we've had with the departments throughout the county, and I want to point out some departments that help us out. We've done some community projects throughout the year, and without the assistance of those departments, these programs wouldn't have happened. First of all, the BRT, and yes, it's been a lot easier, thank you. Susan Thorpe has been there with us as well. And it's been surprising because most of the time that we have some requests that haven't been disapproved, so
Right away.
I've been shocked.
Oh, we can fix
Oh, we
to
can
this
fix
point.
that.
To this point. And just to give you an example, we did a program, Night Court, and without the support of the interpreters, Kathy, thank you, the court security as well, we managed to carry that program and afford that opportunity to the community. The other one was cross-training my staff. Being the outlying courts, we have limited staff, so every staff member needs to be cross-trained in everything else, because you never know when somebody's going to be out or on vacation or whatever the case may be. And I can tell you right now, without the help of human resources to allow me to train my staff, move my staff around, move my budget around, with the assistance of the BRT, nothing of this could happen. Right now, I could report to the board that the court staff is fully trained and fully cross-trained. Our chief clerk could jump into the chief criminal spot. Our manager could be a clerk. So everybody's cross-trained with the exception of one that we just hired, and she's still on probation, but she's well underway. So right now, we don't
Right.
have anything. We're very, very grateful. Thank you.
Right. Any questions? Judge, thank you. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Justice Court number 3. Justice of the Peace, Judge Jones is available for any questions. Department pages begin page 105, staffing page 107.
Good morning.
Morning.
Chairman Reyes, members of the board. I'm going to just echo several others before me. I'm very pleased, satisfied with BRT's recommendations. Only here if you have any questions for me.
Any questions? You know, do you describe yourself as the outlier?
Yeah.
Court?
Yes, I do.
Welcome.
No man's land.
No man's land. Huh?
No, we're not that bad.
No, you're not that bad. All right.
How's your
Thank
new
you very
neighbor working out? Guy
Sure.
down here.
Oh, yeah?
Who?
Do you have an office in there?
Yeah.
Very well. We're happy to have you.
Yeah, well,
I
you
try
wouldn't
not to
say
get in their
anything
way too
different during
much.
the budget work session, would you?
Very well.
Very well. Very well. Thank you very
You can
much.
private message me later.
Yeah.
Oh.
Give us your true feelings later.
Questions?
No, no questions.
All right, thank you.
Next, we have Juvenile Court. Leo Mendez, Deputy Director of Juvenile Court, is available for any questions. Department pages begin page 109, staffing page 111.
Morning, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. We are so very pleased with the recommendation that was proposed to you. I will echo Judge Hall's comments. I want to thank the board. I want to thank the budget review team. I want to thank Gail for his effort. I want to thank Alicia Fauser for her efforts as well. So I'm here to answer any questions.
There's got to be something wrong. Somebody's got to have a problem here.
I love your Kids of Hope.
No, no.
Thank you very much.
No,
Yes,
no.
that
Any
program is
comment?
amazing.
No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next, we
Who's
have
that?
Capital Improvement Program. Roger Patterson, County Engineer, is available for any questions, and we should have a CIP book available.
It's trouble coming, I know. And, you know, you guys understand that you don't necessarily need to stay here for the whole thing. So if you have something better to do, or you think you have something better to do, you know, we won't feel offended if you leave and go back to your respective stations. Hold on. Just hold on, Roger. Just give them a 5-minute situation so they can settle. Yeah.
I thought Roger was gonna leave.
Yeah, give us 5 minutes to get ready for you. Supervisor McLeod had an emergency. I'll get some coffee. We're getting ready. We gotta make it last more than an hour and 10 minutes, otherwise the paper is gonna keep us. We gotta.
I can't believe how fast this
Blake,
is going.
we gotta make it last more than an hour and 10 minutes, otherwise we're gonna break the record. That's what's gonna come on the paper. County Board of Supervisors breaks own record for one day.
That's up to Roger now. No pressure.
Oh, no, wait. No, Roger's gonna give it a good shot.
My dad's name was Roger, so he's on his garage too, so. Don't just
was a little restless because the earlier portion just took a long time. And, we want to make sure we don't break the record of yesterday. That's why we're kind of like, going like, okay, hold it up a minute. Okay, Roger, CIP.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
Here to present an overview of the capital improvement program, the CIP we refer to. It's the 5-year outline of the county's expenditures. We have raised the threshold for the projects that would be considered for a CIP this year from $50,000 to $100,000. So the smaller ones that used to be submitted as part of this process are now been incorporated into the operating expenses of the individual departments. And the CIP is divided up into fund and also the type of the projects. There's 7 sections in particular. First section is HERF, and this is a recap of all of the projects that we're proposing to do in fiscal year 19. Several of them are carryover projects. I would ask the board's direction or feedback. Do you want to go over every project, or perhaps just pick out specific projects, or even?
No. If somebody has a question on any of the projects, they can surely ask. But we got it in front of them. You don't have to go through each one of them. Does anybody have any particular projects like to ask? I like to tell you. I mean, it's a great CIP. I mean, some of the stuff that you're covering, especially in my district, is stuff that we've talked about before, and it's really appreciated. I'm sure it's more appreciated by us in the outlying areas of the county than the urban areas where, the city may take up some of the slack. But for us, I mean, it's a big deal.
I just, real quick comment. I want to thank you for working with Welton Mohawk out in the East County project on the 46E bridge replacement. They came to them with some ideas, and they've been working together to put up fencing to keep the deers from using that crossing as avenues to get into the field. So thank you for working with the district and the farmers out there to get that taken care of.
I do have a question, and I remember now. When I looked at the CIP, and I looked at the total project cost of $63 million, and I look at the outlaying programming, I mean, I obviously don't see, where we get rid of $63 million over 5 years. I mean, where we find the funding, not get rid of. And obviously, it is because some of those projects aren't funded. They're not funded in the 5-year plan. They're listed in the 5-year plan, but they're not funded at all in the 5-year plan, which is a little odd to me, especially something like the bicycle access on major county roadways. We do have an amount set up, but we have 5 years of not doing anything on that. Unless you guys are thinking, well, maybe we can fund some funds next year and include it in that. I mean, I know that it's a 5-year plan, and I know that it's a moving target, that you may be including funding for some projects that aren't listed, that don't have funding. But it certainly makes people who look at a 5-year plan feel better when they see at least some sort of funding attached to their project in the scope of the 5-year plan. You know what I mean? When you have a project that have nothing funded on 4 or 5 years down the road, it just begs the question of, okay, should it really be a part of a 5-year plan when you're not including it at all in the 5 years, the time frame? And so what's the answer to something like the bicycle plan? Is it because, what is it?
There's a couple of questions there. The first one was that the total project cost is $63 million, and that is any external funds that we may be receiving. In particular, like Martinez Lake Road, where we receive federal aid. We don't receive it directly through the county. They expend it. So we just budget for the local matching share or the 5.7% monies.
Oh, I see.
So that's what the differences are.
That's right. So what happens is the total project cost may be $63 million, but our contribution may be a lot less. But it still gets those projects done, right?
The budget you see on the particular fiscal years, those are only the monies that the county will actually expend. Like on County 8th Street at the top, the county is the lead on that particular project, so the city's going to be forwarding their matching share to the county, and then we will be paying the contractor directly.
Okay.
Martinez Lake Road, as well as the Red Cloud Road reconstruction. Collectively, I think that's $25 million.
Hi.
Federal Highway Administration will be paying the contractor directly, so we won't budget for that. The bicycle access, which is down at 1.1804, the YMPO is presently doing a bicycle plan, and presumably the results of that study will be identified the near term, midterm, and the long range terms for the bicycle needs and connectivity of the roads. And so we don't know what particular roads they are at this particular time. So we're not going to budget for it this year, but we may once the project gets done.
So we put it there because we figured that there will be something done about access to those bicycle paths. But since we don't know exactly what that will be, or even remotely what that would be, it's difficult to put to assign any expense to a specific year, as opposed to just simply saying we do want to address the fact that we are going to be working towards that access point, those access points.
Correct, and presumably the study we brought before the board, and once they adopt the recommendations, then we'll start programming the funding for it.
All right. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Oh, now that opened up. Huh?
Yeah.
Sorry, but he called.
On County 8th Street and between Avenue C and D, when can we see that come to fruition?
Yeah, it is a joint project. There are some improvements. For the most part, the roadway improvements are jointly funded between the city and the city of Yuma and Yuma County. There are particular elements that only belong to the city of Yuma, and they are paying for it. And consequently, and also the county, there's some improvements outside of the scope of work that we're going to be paying for. We're going to be mill and overlay in the intersection of 8th Street and Avenue C, for instance. That would be 100% county. The city is finalizing some of their improvements for streetlights in particular that will be incorporated into the design of the roadway, and that's still pending. It's a little bit overdue, but I expect it to be submitted shortly. Once it's submitted, it'll be incorporated in the plans. The plans are complete. They're ready to bid.
So we're just waiting on the city?
At this point, yeah.
You had a question?
Well, on that one, just so you know, Supervisor, that project was toast and done. It was not going to happen. And fortunately, Roger worked closely with the city counterparts and brought that back. So that's one that you can be grateful is on the books, because it wasn't until a short time ago. So thank you for your cooperation on that. The county is really stepping up on this project.
It was sadly in need of replacing. That road's terrible.
Terrible need. That's why there were some people that went to work to get that done. But I am grateful that we're moving on that. On the North Frontage Road, Roger, I see that we had this next fiscal year, $2,200,000 funding, then 380, and then closing out with 1.45 in 3 years from now. Why is that? I thought that project was something that was imminent. How do we expend $2 million this year and then nothing, relatively little the next year, and then another half again the following year? How does that work?
We did a reallocate in order to fund the 8th Street project from Avenue C to D. We did take most of the funding from this particular project and converted it to 8th Street. And so, and then back in, I think in early February, the board directed to revise the scope of the project to include bicycle lanes, which increased the cost.
Okay, so you're putting that funding toward it then?
So we can't do it all in 1 year. We just started the redesign of it, and then we have to get into the right-of-way acquisition. So we need to accumulate monies over 3 years to build the project.
Got it. So we're looking at, that's 3 years out. Okay.
That's just getting the money to be able to do it.
I do recall that's how he managed to resurrect the 8th Street project, was to use that funding. So thank you.
On CIP number 1103, which is the Avenue E SR 195 to County 18th Street corridor analysis, that's the analysis that we hope will take place to determine the connection from County 18 to SR 195 that will basically tie the Somerton area to the border, to the new port of entry. Is that correct?
That's correct. That would be 111. It's the extension of Avenue E at the Ash and extending northward to County 18th Street and Avenue D. We did receive it's a federal aid program. At that time, it was a coordinated border of infrastructure from the FHWA, and that funded the study, which is about $600,000. The local matching share was $21,000. That's just coming to a conclusion right now. We did up to 30% plans doing it, and the only thing we need at this point is an environmental approval. YMPO is processing an amendment to have that completed. Then that study will be done. It's only at the 30% level. As a condition of the grant and the IJ that we entered into, we have to acquire the rights-of-ways within 10 years. Most of the right-of-way is, it's in 250 in fiscal year 21. Most of the right-of-way is under federal lands and also state lands. And
you know, when you look up from County 18 and you look up at the Mesa, you see a big proliferation of date palm trees in that area. I mean, you know, if you could visualize that, as I do when I drive down there. Every time I drive down there and I look to the right, you know, going east, and I see all those palm trees and I see them, you know, just taking up all that edge of that mesa, I think, oh man, you know, if they're, because what happens is sometimes these people lease land from the state land department, for example, and grow stuff on it. Okay, and then the problem is once you get to the point where the leases expire, or that you get to the right-of-way acquisition, then the value of that land is different, okay, because there's improvements on it. So the time is not on our side, I think. And that area is developing into a large date palm tree growing area. And so I keep looking at that going, oh, man, it's going to be more and more difficult as time goes by to get through that, to be able to connect that. And that's an important project for the future of that region, because I think Somerton, you know, tying the Somerton area, the valley area, to that new port of entry will improve the chances that they can develop some sort of economic development process where you go through there. So anyway, just sort of brought that out because, I mean, like I said, time is not in our...
I'm trying to remember, though, south of 19th is pretty much open. Once you go south of County 19th, the main development right now is between 18 and 19.
No, that's farmland up south of 19. It's like the chair saying, there's some dates being
built up in the mesa. As you come up the mesa, you can see them,
dates.
rows and rows of dates, and I that's a crop that, you know, it really it's ideal for the conditions that we have. But what happens now is I think they're leasing a lot of land out there for that use, and it's going to become a problem if you want to run a road through there, because we're going to be cutting off fields where there's going to be certain value put on that land that isn't there now or wasn't there.
Mr. Chair and Roger, I've had a couple of constituents ask me if Somerton Avenue is going to be extended anytime.
That's probably what they're asking. Extended to where? To the south?
Yeah, all the way to San Luis.
That's what we're talking about.
Is that what you're talking about right now?
Yeah, that's a connecting between 18, which connects on Somerton Avenue. Somerton Avenue ends on 19.
On 19, yeah.
19,
I know where that is.
And then, you know,
And then you get onto Highway 95, right?
Yeah, well, you try to.
Yeah, I know.
And that's the problem. You can't right now.
I know.
Which will be Avenue E.
Yeah, which will be Avenue E. The city of Somerton,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
they moved it.
that's where, okay. So we're talking about the same
Yeah, we're talking
area.
about the same thing, but it probably won't be Somerton Avenue. It will be Avenue E. The city has decided that they don't want heavy traffic going through Somerton Avenue, getting into the city, so they moved it eastward to Avenue E, and that's what we're looking at right now, how to connect Avenue E to Highway 95.
Oh, got it.
All right. Okay.
Once the environmental approval is given on this concept design report, we can then proceed with the acquisition of the right-of-way. So once that happens, I can bring this back to the board if you want to move it forward.
All right. Well, thank you.
Initiate the right-of-way acquisition.
Yeah. For no questions, this has turned into a pretty heavy question session. Anything else, guys? No. Move on. Yeah. Roger.
Thank you.
Is public facilities.
Oh, well, sounds like it.
This year we had a large amount of requests, greater than the past years. We had to separate it into 2 pages. You've previously kind of looked at these proposals, these projects, and when you were discussing this last week, determining how to fund them. It was determined to go to a bond issue.
We're going to put them in the budget. Let's put it that way. And the decision to fund them is pretty much set. If we want to fund them, the only way to actually fund them in the near future is to bond it. If we want to extend it any longer, to wait. I mean, we discussed that. It was one of those issues where we had to come to terms with the fact that if we extend them more time, it may become more costly to do them anyway. So whatever savings we may have by postponing it and getting the capital developed through a process of saving it may not offset the additional cost of doing it further out in the future, right? So, good.
Page 1 and 2.
Yeah. No. Nothing in there that, that we don't know about. Okay.
Balance of the request for fiscal year 19.
Well, it's fine. Move to the flood control district, the whipping boy of this year.
I do have one revision. This capital improvement program was developed based on the reduced tax levy that we discussed last week. Thank you for increasing that. It wasn't as drastic as originally proposed. So this CIP was drafted on a tax rate of 0.2154. I understand now it's going to be just reduced, I think 1.6 cents, 1.9 cents. So the new tax rate would be 0.2650. We'll have to make the updates and revisions to this. We'll submit it as part of the tentative map or tentative budget review.
Okay, so on fiscal year 19, the total is 9,662,500, right? And I guess my question is, you do have enough money to do that, right? Okay, and you do have a good carryover balance from to next year. That is more than the actual money that you're going to be able to spend in 18-19.
For this year, that's
For
right.
this year.
And so we budgeted to expend the.
No, I just wanted to make clear we're not dealing with a situation where we're really taking the ability you guys to do all the projects that you have listed by reducing that tax rate, right? So that's the bottom line. Is we want to be careful not to put you in a situation that you can't fund your projects, or that you can't see the way you fund your projects. Okay. All right.
I have a question. Sure. It just really concerns me to see that much amount of money and still collecting tax on it and not seeing projects being moved as fast as I think they should. Just the Smucker Park detention basin, how long has that been going on?
Oh, you should have brought that up. The Smucker Park project.
No,
it's like a ghost that keeps coming up.
Not only that, but
I know, but the Smucker Park is something that comes close to our crowd.
It's just projects that take for so long. I just found out the one in
it's the city's fault.
One in Somerton.
Yeah, the detention one in Somerton.
That one that just
the one in Gas.
last year or 2 years ago. It was in the works for about 10 years. So it just, by seeing that amount of money that we have in that account, why aren't projects moving faster?
A couple of questions there. The Smucker Park, that was initiated in an IGA in 1997, I believe.
87.
At least
20 years ago.
Sound about right? Yeah.
It's only 20 years.
There's a long history to it, but the city had to develop the plans and give them to us, and then there was the project exceeded the original estimates greatly by 3 times. So I think 2 years ago, we finally entered an agreement with the city of Yuma who was going to pay for all those increased costs, and that was resolved. The city did provide the final plans to us and did get Arizona Department of Water Resources approval. At that point, we initiated a constructability review. We recommended some revisions to reduce our exposure as well as the construction cost of it. And those final plans have been submitted back to ADWR. We've had a meeting with them last month, one-on-one. We feel that it will probably be approved. That was their gut feeling, in a month, up to 6 months. And so that's what we're looking at.
That's really, those flood control, the projects, they happen to be in some right-of-way, they always happen to be, flood control is a difficult issue because it involves a lot of natural obstacles, and it involves, especially out in the foothills where you have washes and you have things that, that you can't, change the flow of certain things. They're complex projects. But still though, the question goes back to, okay, if we have a tax rate that is bringing in a certain amount of money and it's starting to accumulate because some of the projects aren't getting done, it becomes what it became this year. It became an avenue to manage the total tax rate. And I certainly don't want to see that. I want to see those projects done. I mean, and I guess all of us wants to see those projects done. So whatever you can do to speed up, this sounds bad, right? But whatever you can do to speed up the process of spending that money helps get those projects done, and it helps us justify keeping a tax rate, on a district, or on a set of projects that are well-funded now, if they could get done because the money's already there. Okay? Don't want to ramble in too much. All right?
And just as a comment, this most recent delay that Roger was talking about was done to really protect the county. And so
it was flooding.
There's another year delay. But there's good reasons for these.
No, I understand. I understand there's some reasons sometimes, but when you have an entity that's willing to work and you don't have any issues, for it to take 10 years, or
it's summer. He's referring to summer.
To Somerton, yeah.
I know a little bit about Somerton. It hasn't been in the works for 10 years, but we did coordinate the timing of our construction. So it coordinated with their received some funds for CDBG to repave the roads. Instead of us tearing up the roads and patching it, it was a win-win for us that we tore up the roads, put the storm sewer systems in, and then they came back and rebuilt the roads. So we coordinated our construction with the availability of their grant, but it wasn't in the works for 10 years.
Well, at least for 7, or more than 7. But it was there since Eddie Mendez was there. So, and he's not been there for at least 10 years. So it's been a while.
Been talked about for 10 years.
Yeah.
It was cooperatively scheduled with the Somerton on the timing of that construction.
And I know the same thing happened in San Luis. And I know Gaston, because I know Gaston had issues and still has some issues. So I guess what we're saying is, look, guys, if you can find ways to speed up your process, it'll help us justify keeping a tax rate that is feeding a fund that is getting bigger than it should be. In terms of
Until
just,
we build Smucker Base.
until we build Smucker Park and do some of those projects.
Once
Okay?
Smuckers.
Yeah.
Not only building that money, but it gets costly more as time goes by.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
Everything gets
something
costly.
that we- Yeah, so
The
the
construction
longer
of
we
those
wait, the
things.
more it's gonna cost.
All right.
Just add that the foothills, the 3.1004, those improvements are going to become we had the bid opening, and the bid award's going to be at the next Board of Supervisors meeting, and it's about $3.5 million. We'll have to make some adjustments to what we think was the anticipated cost. So.
All right. Okay.
Question, Mr.
Sure,
Chair?
sure. Supervisor Blanca?
On the West Yuma Mesa Storm Drainage Improvement, County 8th Street to 16th Street, what is that? What are the improvements? Do you know what the improvements need to be? It's the second one down.
That one over 20 years, I think, starting with the Magnolia Basin, we have been improving capturing all the stormwater that flows off the West Mesa, all the way from Colorado River to County 14th Street. So it's been a series of programs, series of projects that was adopted as part of that report. We built Magnolia Basin, and then a couple of smaller basins here last year, 2 basins this fiscal year. The goal is, and then to final it, is to do the Smucker Park. Once that happens, then we can apply to the FEMA to do a map amendment perhaps, and to get those areas that are below the mesa out of a special flood zone hazard, so they have to pay for the flood insurance.
Like Hacienda Estates, not in those areas right there.
So assuming the Smucker Park gets completed, the $35,135, that starts the LOMAR, the letter of map amendment process. It's a hydraulic restudy of the area to get them to remove it. So that will complete that effort.
So to clarify, that 4.4 million, most of that's been expended. That's the project. So see, that's why you don't see anything in the out years.
Got it.
It's almost completed.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, moving to the housing.
Thank you.
Those are mostly funded through their own funds, right? Well, one.
From these funds.
Yeah, from HUD.
Yes, this is to the housing, to the capital fund project, to the Department of Housing.
Yeah, okay.
No refrigerator.
No refrigerators. Let's move on. There's no controversy with them. Oh,
Next one is the jail district. Jail district funds, they're carrying over 2 projects from the bond issue.
Yeah, we talked about those earlier.
That gentleman talked about these.
Yeah.
We have.
Yeah.
Section 6 is the information technology program.
We don't care about this.
Oh, yeah, we do.
This is good. I mean, we also talked about some of them. Judge Haas referred to some of them, and it truly is one of those things that can't wait. I mean, it just gets worse. The technology it's just moving too fast. If you don't keep up, you end up with a lot of problems that are more costly to resolve. So, although I joke about it, this is one of the most important parts of being able to keep up with current needs.
To get the planning done, DGS needs that new management system
Right.
software.
This is good for you, Judge. We're not gonna mess with that. Okay. So let's go to community development.
I figured it was a typo.
We don't want to do the unfunded one. El Prado and Orange Grove. Oh my God.
2 improvement districts or 2 special funds from.
What are we doing in Orange Grove? What are we doing in Orange Grove?
Sewer.
The sewer? Sewer project? That's $11 million? That's with the city of Somerton, right?
Not till 2020.
They're proposing receiving some grant funds from the Border Environmental Cooperation Commission, BEC. They haven't received any to date, so.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is that whatever we're doing in terms of a sewer system has to be done in conjunction with Somerton, because Somerton is going to be where they hook up into, right? It's like the Colonia project where we worked in providing funding for the sewer system, but the sewer system, that funding wouldn't have been available if we hadn't a place to connect the sewer lines. So in the Orange Grove area, that's Somerton, right?
Turned up the year.
We're not building a sewer plant, right?
No, we're trying to receive grant funding to proceed with the project.
Okay, and it's got to be in the books, otherwise you can't apply for it. Okay, all right. The unfunded ones? There's only one. There's only one page.
That's 3 pages.
2 pages?
3.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's only $100 million.
Only $100 million of unfunded CIP project.
The unfunded
this.
Even the
We've
best for
already
last.
looked at this, yeah.
Under the
Now this,
unfunded.
I'm glad the sheriff isn't here. First thing that we're not funding is the new sheriff's office.
This
That would have ended
revision
that
is a
lawsuit.
rolling total. The projects that are new and added to this are requests that were submitted last year for funding consideration that were not funded and were not submitted again this fiscal year. So it gets moved over into the unfunded list.
We do laugh about some of this stuff, but in the end, I mean, some of the smaller ones sound like they could be like an emergency generator, or plumbing projects, or, those kind of things sound like like they're stuff that needs to be done. And, they don't sound like big ticket items that you have to think twice about it. They sound like, okay, we have this project that we have plumbing issues someplace, and, we need to resolve it. And I know the budget review team goes through all that stuff. They don't? So this is the stuff you guys don't go through?
What I might say is that we will be going through this. This is something that Roger has just accumulated over time. He just adds to the list of things that have been whatever prior year. Like, for instance, the top one is from 1996. If you look at it's the first 2 numbers after the dot, that's the year that it was originally proposed. So these are some really old projects that shouldn't even be on the list. They're not like current unfunded requests. They're just a long time accumulation of things that weren't funded at the time.
Right.
So I think we need to clean this list up because it really doesn't reflect of anything. It's really not meaningful to you. So I think we'll be cleaning that up for the next year's process.
Okay.
I think we'd like to direct staff not to find any more until we catch up.
But in other words, we're going to give him instructions. Take 1 out, take 3 out, and put 1 in, type of thing.
Well, like the project of painting the small buildings.
I just hate to sound like President Trump.
That's exactly what it sounds like.
That could be done by me. Okay. We wouldn't
All
need a
right,
CIP for
so,
it.
I mean, I don't think that we want to get into some of these things up like that, Roger. Roger, thank you very much. I think you guys did an excellent job in picking the projects that actually needed to get done, and I'm very hopeful that before I leave, whenever I leave, I'll see some of those projects done. Right? I love the overlay on County 16 to County 18 or something like that. That's 19, 18. Thank you. I know the constituents are going to appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right. Item 11, which is discussion in direction regarding the fiscal year 2018-2019 budgets. I've only got two issues that we listened. Oh, Judge, thank you. There's only two remaining issues that I think may need to be addressed in some form. One is that boat situation in Martinez Lake, and the other one is those two additional staff members for the assessor's office, and whether we want to discuss those two. I think unless there's something else that I haven't, heard about. Fortunately, you have a sidebar here with Supervisor McLeod and Pancracy, so I don't know, okay, we're done.
The number,
Over and above that.
over and above what we did.
And we're raising the tax rate.
I know two boats are a lot, even if we can get one.
Oh,
All right, well, why don't we look at,
okay.
all right.
Okay, so what?
Well, Matt Catron is the kind of the chief financial officer for the sheriff's office, and he had let us know that each boat is about $80,000.
How much?
80,000.
80.
I got 47-foot yacht, used one in San Diego.
Maybe I'll sell them. I will.
Well, anyway, look, I mean, we don't have
Why don't you
enough
give him your own
information
book? Yeah.
to
Give him,
make
yeah.
that decision, I don't think. And so, there's the issue, again, you guys were involved in some sort of a discussion there. So I mentioned that the only two remaining issues in terms of funding that I can think of that came out through this process is one is that boat situation in Martinez Lake, and the other one is that two positions for the assessors, that the assessors want for that mapping or that picture, what's it called? Pictometry. Are those kind of projects, I'm not gonna say important enough, because they're important enough. But is there some slack in that budget that we could find to be able to start with that? Or are we to the point now where we're gonna have to put them in the grinder for next fiscal year, or maybe use some emergency funds?
Two positions are in there.
The two positions for assessors are in the recommended.
Oh, they're already in the
budget,
recommended
yes.
budget?
I was talking about.
I'll take
the
that
pulling
back.
out.
Oh, you're talking about pulling them?
Buy a boat.
Oh, forget about it. Well, remember, there's a particular, to me, there's a distinct difference between an ongoing,
That door in a minute.
I know.
an ongoing item, that, we add to the budget. That means that next year, those are gonna be there. The two positions are gonna be there next year.
Yes.
And the boat,
They're fine.
it's one, it's like a capital improvement project that only gets done once a year, or, whatever. I
Every
mean,
10 years for that one.
Yeah, or something like that. So we're down to one, the boat situation. Is there anything in there that we can do with the information that we have right now, or should we wait until Catron gives us more? Or we can always do it on an emergency basis with our, contingency fund if we needed
I mean,
to.
if one of them goes down or sinks or something.
Well, yeah, that's an emergency.
Well, either way, we can figure it out. I mean,
They're operational for the summer, I think.
Yeah.
We haven't heard otherwise.
Yeah, they're getting old,
They're down
but
to
they're
one that's operational. The others are
well. Look,
currently down.
Are they?
Yeah.
so but they need to fix an amount. They need to tell us, specifically. And I would be looking at, okay, can we keep them going for this year and start looking at putting, including them in the fleet replacement situation? You know what I mean?
Well, we're not going to start an actual fleet replacement process until we accumulate the money that we've talked about for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
So right now, and for the next 3 years, we'll be dealing with requests on a one-time basis as they come forward. We don't have an ongoing systematic replacement process yet.
Yeah.
That's why you're looking at the
And that's why I asked
vehicles
whether
for
the
the
fund-
sheriff this year. And
Yeah, well, I believe that if there's no dedicated funding for them through some other source, that we need to start including them as part of the fleet that needs to be replaced at a certain point in time.
Yeah.
They should be part of that plan. And that's why I said they should be part of the fleet. I mean, I know the history. We went through it. They used to be funded from a different source, and maybe that.
Yeah.
They're
Well, that's what
unique
we
in
need
that
to do.
aspect for the
We also
simple
need to
fact
go after SLIF. Mhm.
it's the only the sheriff's office is the only department that is stationed at the lake. All the other agencies that run the river have to come out of El Centro or out of Yuma.
It strikes me as,
They don't come,
you know,
they
that,
don't come that far.
all right. It strikes me as a situation where, I used to, and I still do, complain that CDBG funds, Community Development Block Grant funds, are used by municipalities mostly to supplement their budget. They pick a project and they normally go through this process, but essentially the city already knows what they want to use the funds for, especially in areas like San Luis. And I wonder whether a boat replacement project could fit into one of those situations where we could use a grant or subsidy to replace one that's aging or something. I don't know. I mean, maybe we need to let Nancy know
Yeah.
that she could go after a grant.
A grant.
A safety grant. I mean, there's more ways than one to get that situation resolved. I mean, if funding was there before for replacement under another program, maybe it can be secured through another fund, a federal fund, maybe Garden Stone, could be used for something like this. I mean, we need to put some people. Stone Garden.
It can't be used.
Garden Stone. Stone.
That's-
No.
that's border.
Well, it is. The river is
Stone
close to the
Garden
border.
be used for the river.
I don't think it can. I think that's one of the things.
Water
that
doesn't
can.
go all the way down, guys.
But
Well, anyway, I'm not sure that we're gonna get stuck with, just a boat replacement program at the end of this budget. I just wanted to make sure that, to make sure that staff knows that that's an important issue for us in general, and that we'll be looking at ways you guys, either through a grant program or through some other way, that to help out. And if not that way, then it needs to be part of the next year's budget.
Well, Mr. Chairman?
Yes?
Well, I didn't know that we got 2 boats down and 1 active.
they've got one active, another one, well, I think may have 2, and that's it, because I know there's 2 down. One is needing about $4,000 worth of work, but these are old boats. These are 06s, I think.
Right.
And so you're just putting good money after bad, when they start getting that old.
But are they going to put them on the river for the summer? I can't imagine they're only going to operate.
I know they'll have one, probably 2.
That's it?
Yeah, available on the river.
That's what they
So
have.
hopefully, if they fix the other 2 or the other one, that'll get.
I guess
through.
they ought to just tell us what their plan is to cover the river for the summer.
Yeah, and then we'll deal with it
And then
that
we
way.
can deal with it on, the 21st?
We can deal with it.
We still have room on the 21st to maneuver, right?
Mm-hmm.
After that, though, we'll adopt, and then we're
Done.
done.
Okay.
Unless we want to reduce.
Unless we want to reduce. Yeah. Okay, so any remaining issues, guys?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Any remaining issues other than Supervisor McLeod's?
I'm looking
Good.
at it.
Or Lynn,
You
Bancroft?
didn't beat
Go
your
ahead,
record.
go ahead.
Okay, well, Gil, can you put up the spreadsheet that you sent to me
Yeah.
this morning? Just so the board
Can
has
see
a
it.
full understanding of what we're proposing.
Who? Who's we?
Us.
Us, the 5 of us. It's our decision.
Okay.
Actually, we can just leave it up to the chairman. You know what? I think we'll do that. We'll
We'll let
leave it up
you
to the
decide.
chairman to decide.
Go ahead, let me know what I need to decide on. I didn't get, did I get that memo that,
No, it's something I requested just this morning.
that's we part that I missed.
No, not that one.
No, it's this one. Another one.
It's the one
Mr.
you-
Chairman, Supervisor McLeod, I don't think I have it in my thumb drive. I can make a copy pretty quick and put it up here.
You want me to send it? Susan has it.
No, we have to have it interact. You can't have it on a.
Oh, you can't have,
Can I email it to you or no? I guess
No.
you already emailed it to me.
I can get it from my laptop here in a minute.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, I can load it on a thumb drive for you. We'll take a quick break.
5-minute break for technical difficulties.
sound good.
This is
Sounds
not gonna
great.
be
Sorry.
dramatic, guys. I'm gonna make the decision, how dramatic can it be? ¿Qué se les ocurrió?
$643,000. Dramatic.
Yeah. Everybody needs to understand. Because I didn't know until this morning what that was. I thought it was 230.
Wow.
Pardon me?
Oh,
It's the same thing that I gave you. I sent it to you.
Is it the salary
It's on your,
discussion?
it's on your
No,
phone.
No,
Or
no,
on
the
your
salary
email.
discussion here. No, I don't know, I don't have it.
No, I sent it to you on an email too. Get your phone out, it'll be on your phone.
Oh, yeah. Who wants to look at that on the phone?
Oh, give them time, everybody runs off.
It'll,
Oh, I wouldn't run away. I just want to see these are all the total impacts of what we're doing. A home that remains, you look at the rate, and we've ended up with a zero change for a home that stays exactly the same.
Yes.
Overall, we're going to have an increase of $643,000.
A revenue, an increase in revenue, by
Now,
leaving the
that
same
versus
tax
the
rate.
state hitting us with $757,000 for EORP and not covering it.
Yeah.
All right, so.
So, just so that everybody's clear, I mean, this is the upshot of the budget that we're adopting.
Okay, I'm clear.
And I want to make sure that, you know, the board is clear on that and everybody understands exactly where we're at.
You understand that? Okay.
Well,
all
I
right.
think we've done a very good job considering that the state is not, I mean, they're raising our impact as far as EORP up to 60%.
Well,
From
it's a
30%.
$757,000 hit.
Yes, it is. And I think that with that hit to our budget, we're doing an excellent job of balancing a budget without impacting the taxpayer even more or to a great deal.
That's the point. The point out that
So,
the budget team has done a good job of figuring out how to
Yes.
get all of these things in order,
yes,
swallowing these massive hits,
yes.
and the impact is very, very minimal, and the maneuvering to keep the tax rate the same by moving it between the different districts like flood control to the primary, to allow us to cover these expenses, I think you've done well.
So
I think
the
the board
impact
has
of-
done
yes.
the very, very best that we can, considering the incredible challenges.
That the state's put on us, yes.
So,
All right. Does everybody understand that? All right. Okay. Anything else? Any other comments?
thank you for preparing
Thank
that
you.
on short notice. I know I asked you just, what,
Señor
15 this
Villegas.
morning?
Mr. Villegas.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, there is no issues that I can think of. We'll be discussing the budget again on May 21st to get a tentative budget adopted. There's still time for some tinkering. I mean, I shouldn't call it that, but there's still time for unpredictable, unpredicted, situations. Not much time, and I hope not many changes that are substantial, but that's what we're looking at. That's the budget we're looking at, but I want to thank everybody for coming over and giving us their 2 cents. Some of them didn't get to 5 cents. They're worth their comments on it, and thank you very much for taking the time, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Mhm.